Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the...
How many weeks of Division 1 has it taken to get to the finals? Well, it's a whole semester full of schoolwork, exams, and more, but also full of Valorant action. Hellos and goodbyes to every team but two to get to this point, Dallas. We're super excited to see the grand finals step up for the first split here in Division 1. My name's Inferno, joined here by Mick, aka Dallas. We're super excited to get this one underway.
Most definitely are. I mean, everything's culminated into this moment, at least for the split, because, well, keep in mind, there's also a LAN underway as well. But this final, as soon as things go, is going to be online. So the comfort of their homes, or better yet, their facilities, rooms, wherever these guys are playing, it should be that element of comfortability this week to kind of pander into their favor. But as things go here, I mean, the lobby's still going to be hectic. Things are still going to be hopefully drawn out. And, well, nonetheless, the stakes are high as they can be because, well, there is nothing left besides, well, the 5 maps in front of us here tonight.
Yeah, and talk about level of comfortability. This is not a foreign location for one of these two teams in terms of grand finals, whether that be on the League of Legends side of things here for Division 1 or over on the CVAL Championship side of things, which is that upper legion you're talking about for the collegiate side of Valorant for us. So you're looking at Maryville here facing off against St. Clair Saints. And St. Clair have made their way here through a pretty tough side of that bracket, having to deal with West Virginia there towards the end in their final matchup. That was going to be heavily contested. It was actually a very good series overall, but St. Clair managed to take through that final map and secure themselves here in Maryville, tore through that Stony Brook roster because they had already dealt with Winthrop and they didn't need to face off against what were the expected two teams we were going to see going into that grand finals. If you had asked all the talent and all the statistical geniuses coming into this season, Dallas, who it would be, you thought Winthrop would be here, but yet it's a separate team entirely, and a team that Maryville hadn't faced since very early on here in this split, and a team that when they did face off, well, map 1 wasn't very pretty, but map 2 turned into a pretty even affair on a map like Haven. So we're expecting to see, at the very least, maps like that come back into play and how those will break down, and hopefully improvement across those ones that maybe weren't as pretty for those rounds. But the players themselves are a little bit different. Let's go and jump on over to the roster selection screen to see who we're dealing with for the tonight's series in this full best of 5 here, Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the kind of the roster that we're expecting. St. Clair had a bit of a swap up there, but even then, still, what we got in front of us tonight is going to be Chloric, Ange Giza, Screwface, and Renz off on the side of Maryville. Teams, you know, Wildfire kind of being in here every now and again, kind of a bit of, not a substitute, just kind of a curveball when they feel like putting him on the field. But as things go for St. Clair, it's going to be Instinct, Tillo, JP, Jazzykins, and Tyga. The usual squad ever since we saw Jazzykins come back from Game Changers, be more integrated into this roster. Seth was the one who was filling in more times than not when it came around to kind of rotating around, but he's more in a coach's position as things go for the moment. So, I mean, obviously, rosters across the board, they have not only the core 5 that work out for them that want to be putting on the field tonight, but even more so, have themselves a capable 6 on the sides if something, you know, seemingly happens inside of their chairs. But, I mean, obviously, these are the 5 that you want. These are the ones who've been around for the majority of the season, or even more so when it matters the most here in playoffs. So they should be ready to roll, and they should be ready to go ahead and put things on the server when things get kind of running.
Yeah, and there are plenty of highlight moments from basically every player of these 10 you currently see on your screen and the collective occasional that we're playing in other matches. If you look to your top right, the Hammer Brother has Giza at any point, so just to keep that out there for you. This is clips from their first matchup, and I touched a little bit on the map of Sunset. This was the one that was not so pretty for St. Clair. Turned into a 2-13, and keep in mind this was also St. Clair's map pick, so it didn't turn out very well for them, and Maryville took that one in stride. It turned it over to map 2, which was the map of Haven. That one was a lot closer, and that was that 13-8, still in Maryville's favor, where they took that one 2-0. Maryville had arguably the hardest schedule overall to start this semester, this split here for Division 1, having to face every highly competitive top 4 to top 5 team we spoke about on Tilt Proof throughout the semester, and then the only reason they don't have the hardest schedule in the entirety of Division 1 is because they didn't have to face themselves at any point throughout this schedule, and they went undefeated through the remainder, and here into Grand Finals still undefeated. St. Clair have not had that same luxury. Obviously lost to Maryville, has had trials and tribulations throughout, had a very tough time going about it. We thought there would be a loss to West Virginia towards the end of the season before we jumped into playoffs. They managed to strike away a victory. West Virginia kind of dropped their ball, didn't play their game. They started to play their game in that playoff matchup, Dallas, but still St. Clair managed to come out on top in map 3 and took apart that West Virginia roster. So they've looked really darn good, but it does seem to come down to a lot of map choices, and map choices are kind of a problem right now in a grand finals. It's 5 maps, meaning you only get 2 bans, and those bans, you only get one of them for your team. The rest of them are up in the air to be played.
I mean, yeah, as far as things go, obviously being that BO5, things can be drawn out or things could also be, cut a little bit quickly, because the big stressor for me here is knowing that even though we're on map 5, I mean, we have seen that only one map has been given up from Maryville the entirety of this season so far, and that was from the likes of Winthrop. That was a team we were kind of putting on a pedestal to be able to kind of at least keep things relatively close, and even though they won a map, they kept the rest of them relatively nitty-gritty as well, even though the other map that was there was not a rinse per se, but it was definitely a big disparity between these two squads. So, I mean, clearly Maryville's the one that is up on a pedestal. They're the ones that have this kind of under wraps for themselves, and it's really up to St. Clair to really prep for this thing and have themselves ready to go in this. And they've had a good season. Obviously, we expected the dark horse of West Virginia to go all the way through that bottom side of the bracket, but they didn't end up making it here because St. Clair's the one who shut them down. St. Clair's also the team who found that upset to get themselves that seed number 2 with that whole controversy we saw between Stony Brook, West Virginia, and them as things kind of started to run along. And even then, Stony Brook, same exact team. We didn't see them get to this point because, well, they ended up losing to Maryville with that secondary squad in play. So still a lot of question marks here inside the league that could continue over to next season. But here tonight, it is really just Clair's game to win, because they got to make sure to step things up. They got to have things ready to roll. And I mean, I feel like these past couple weeks have been a great kind of practice run, or even more so, just a lot of stakes at hand for them to be prepared for the, unit that Maryville has proven themselves to be.
Yeah, there's plenty of players to specifically highlight and talk about. Let's touch on a couple of them. We jump over to our head-to-head. Big one is going to be the difference between Giza and JP in these two systems. Giza is arguably one of the best collegiate players of all time in Valorant, and now you're looking at them as this kind of standout for an already unbelievable roster like Maryville is. But then you also have to keep in mind that JP's transferred off from an opposing school and is stepping into a new system, and we always talked about how good they were going to be for this program, and they have been, but when they're starting to lag behind on certain maps or getting targeted, the team can start to struggle around them. So you need other players to step up. And in this department, we look to our duelist to kind of pick up the pacing on those kills, create more distance, find more separation. And that's no other than Renz and Instinct, as you see in front of you here. And for Renz, they don't even need crazy stats. They don't need to be this player that comes out of the woodworks, because every single player on Maryville can perform the same job. It's just the difference in those moments where you need it that Renz performs out of their mind, lights out. You need someone consistent in this position to hold strong. And Instinct is just unreal. Whether it's Instinct or Taiga for the side, or even Tillo stepping up on all these rounds, you know that St. Clair have the potential for gunners. That's why their stats are actually technically higher here than you see Renz's, because they are across the board needing to do more for the team, because the team has a little bit of inconsistency from St. Clair on certain maps like we've been mentioning, and they have to pick up that pacing. But since their stats are getting higher, since you're seeing them perform higher, you know they are capable of picking up that pacing, and they've proven that by making it to the grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, looking over at Ren specifically, funny enough, this guy has the lowest KD among his team. So, I mean, that's one thing to kind of go ahead and give credit to for the rest of the squad, because, well, his job as a duelist is to go in there and die, and he manages to at least find himself in a positive standing by the end of every single one of those encounters and those executions, because, well, he's got Screwface. It's kind of a duo there, a little buddy to get onto site to, where sometimes he'll be playing that initiator, but more times than not, it's because he has that understanding playing duelist in a good bit of these maps with the Jet and the Yoru in play as well, to know what exactly Renz needs to, maximize his chances of living. Meanwhile, Instinct, we don't really see too much of that on the side of St. Clair. We don't see that double duelist too much from that squad. They like to play those standard layouts, do those double controllers, double sentinels, things that it likes to make sure that they take more pacing and more control of the map as a whole, rather than the actual engagement or retakes that are inevitable to go underway. So, I mean, it makes sense for him to be a little bit higher in that regard, ADR to be a little bit higher as well, ACF to be a little more consistent, but even then, just looking at what this guy can do, it shows that him being the sole stander of that kind of responsibility, and the rest of the team still kind of being in that same, area, that same relativity there, makes sure that an entire unit who plays together makes much, much cleaner results by the end of the day.
Now, we've been talking about Renz and Instinct. Let's go and jump on over to an interview we had here from Ange for the Maryville side of things to talk things through about heading into this grand finals.
Hey guys, Skid here. Today we have Ange to talk to before he goes into his finals match against St. Clair. So Ange, how does going undefeated change the team's mindset going into finals?
Well, we're just, continuing this from last year. So it's just the same mindset. We're coming in to win, ready to play.
Same mindset as all other matches, right?
Yep.
And do you feel any extra pressure to keep the perfect record, or does it free you up to play your game?
I think it frees us up. I think we all have confidence in each other to, make our own plays. And if someone messes up, someone else is going to pick up our slack. So we have, honestly, we're feeling good about it.
Yeah, you guys do a really good job at just picking up each other's weaknesses and making sure to fill those holes very, very greatly. And is there one map or area of play that you think will decide the series against St. Clair?
I think as long as we aren't giving first bloods up, I think we'll be fine. That's usually the case for us. If we're having a bad game, it's because someone's making a play and someone's dying early. So as long as we keep it clean and at least trade the first blood, I think we'll be fine.
And is there a specific goal you have as a player going into this match?
I don't think so, but like I just like to keep it consistent. You know, keep my play up, make sure I'm supporting my team properly, and getting my kills that I need to get.
Gotcha. And one final thing. Is there anything you want to say to your fans that are going to be watching today?
Hey, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys.
All right. That'll do it.
There's plenty of fans out there as well for this Maryville roster, or just how good they are. Talk a little bit about the refragging that's required early in this. Was a bit of a problem they had against Winthrop. You know, obviously when they dropped that map against them as well, they had issues with inconsistency for it. We also saw that back in May as well, to the end of that month. So this is a team that has been working on recovering those facts, and in other leagues and other performances that they've had, have done a good job of starting to market themselves as a team that doesn't have those issues. But they know it. Other teams know it at Divider View enough. And I think that St. Clair here, Dallas, are going to be teams that are really locking in to kind of shut that down for them.
Yeah, I mean, St. Clair obviously have a lot of kind of VOD review on their hands, knowing they're going to be going up against Maryville, especially in the past week, knowing they went ahead and beat that West Virginia roster. That team, I feel like, already took a lot of time under their wing, but knowing they have all the time in the world to kind of get this thing rolling, they have a lot of really good teams also who are kind of not entering the offseason per se, but at the end of their split who are probably willing to still get some scrims in. So I'm sure probably Winthrop was alongside that kind of, you know, roster and standing, maybe doubled down to the West Virginia to make sure things weren't a fluke and they really kind of got things consistent. But obviously preparations galore. They can do all they want. They got to make sure to be ready for today. And I'm sure we have an interview from JP as well to figure out whether they actually have things ready to roll.
All right, so congrats on making grand finals for Division 1. Starting off, what's the mentality inside the team heading into the rematch against the undefeated Maryville?
I think that we try not to think that much about our opponents. We definitely know that they are a good team, but we are also a good team, and we have a really good momentum right now. We've been comments from a lot of good wins, and I think that we definitely have the potential to win. So the mentality is that the vibes are great. We know we are a good team. We know what we need to do to win, and we're gonna try our best.
Do you feel more motivated or more relaxed knowing that you're the underdog in this matchup?
Honestly, I don't really think about this that much. I think that it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because we are playing the same game, the same map, and we are all trying to get 13 points first. And I try not to think about that. I know that we are the underdogs, but I don't think this means anything, and we're just like gonna get on the server and shoot them on the head.
If the series goes the distance all the way to map 5, which map would you want as your decider?
I think that a fun map for the decider would be Haven. I think that's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's a good map from us, a good map from them. So,
how has the team grown since the start of the season to make this finals run possible?
we started the season very rough. We were having some really bad results, but we all sat together and talked, and we addressed the issues of like the reasons why we were losing, and we all managed to actually understand and improve and fix the mistakes. So we definitely grew a lot as a team, and the St. Clair of tomorrow is not going to be the same St. Clair as the beginning of the tournament, so we have really good odds of winning.
And finally, what do you want to say to your fans going into Division 1 finals?
Just thanks for the support, and I hope that you guys can last the 5 maps. I'm assuming it's going to be 5 maps, and it's going to be a fun match. We're going to try our best. We have been working a lot for this moment, and the support of everyone is highly appreciated. My family in Brazil, my girlfriend is always watching the games, and yeah, it's very important to me. And yeah, thank you. E muito obrigado a todo mundo que assiste do Brasil, e espero ganhar amanhã.
The St. Clair of today is not the St. Clair of yesterday, not the St. Clair at the beginning of the season, not the St. Clair from a year ago even. I mean, keep in mind, JP was not on this roster last semester at all, and this is new players stepping into the system, and it's taken quite a bit of growing pains, right, Dallas? We've seen that player, we've seen a lot of these players in other teams, and they've worked really well in those rosters. The reason why they get scouted, the reason why they come over here to St. Clair to try to evolve even further and to improve the St. Clair scheme and, overall program to that next level, and I feel like they finally got to the point at the end of this semester where they can truly say they've done that, but they have to cap it off here with a big game. Whether it's a win or not here against Maryville, they can proudly say they got here, but a win would be the ultimate cap to a great season and a great recovery for this program.
Yeah, I mean, talking about wins, they got to find at least 2 because you heard it out of the man's mouth himself. He's assuming it's going to 5. So you got to go ahead and earn at least 2 of those wins to get there. And with the 5 maps in front of us, they got to win at least, as we said, 2 of those, and they got a long road ahead of them if they want to bring this to all 5, because Pearl and Abyss were banned off the rip. Then we see Haven, Split, Bind, Corrode, and Sunset. And I was saying it earlier that I feel like it was only going to be going to 4, considering that Lotus was out of the rotation now for St. Clair, which I feel like was one of their stronger maps inside the pool prior. As things go now, sure, Haven is another big hitter of theirs, but what team doesn't know that the remap side of Haven, which has been around since the beginning of the game, when it was still named Project whatever letter like Google, compared to an actual title itself. So, I mean, it's crazy enough to think that not only JP is confident enough to do that and bring this to 5 maps, but even more so to, funny enough, as you mentioned, get that travel, get that passport, get that in, but not only just get the entirety of the US of A, where most teams' destinations are, and bring his talents over to Canada to hopefully kind of get this 5 map rolling and even maybe a win under their belt if they can manage it.
Yeah, and one of the ones they talked about in the interview for a map they're really focusing on, I think it's going to come down to, is going to be that first map of all things, actually, of Haven, the one that we saw these 2 teams face off against, the closest one that St. Clair got to in that one, which is actually Maryville's map pick in their series, that 13-8 score. So they got really close. You saw a little bit of clips there in the moments from it, but we didn't see the overall result go in that St. Clair Saints' favor. And with obviously roster changes, them setting up new things, and also the pro experience that they've gained within that time frame, and evolving the team through that, it truly does feel like this is a new St. Clair's team that should be able to swing that map more their favor. But then you look, if it gets to 5, what problems does that bring? 13-2 is a really bad map score, and it's the final map we see. So the decider is one where JP has to put their money where their mouth is. If they are going to win 2 maps and force it to that decider, they've got to prove they are not the same team as yesterday. This is a new team today coming in and making up for all those mistakes. And it's real easy to say you make mistakes. It's that much harder to find where those mistakes were and not be stuck in your own mind space to do so. And I've seen St. Clair improve upon themselves, and we're hoping that added adaptability and improvement can be showcased throughout all 5 of these maps tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they are a different team than what they started. Keep in mind, the first half of the season, we didn't see Jazzy Kids too much. We saw Seth kind of more in that play, and even after he ended up leaving to some degree, at least the mainstay roster, he stepped in that coaching position. And even then, during the interview we had with him, he said he felt kind of like that more like unk status, dad status of the rest of the crew, where he's not really there in terms of reflex, but even then still, playing on the Viper, he still had grounds to hold. So if something happens, I said he has to step in, well, he could definitely fulfill that role and at least maybe pick up that agent. But for the rest of the team, they have their defined roles. They really understand where they should be on the map. They have this nice cohesive kind of game plan to culminate these executions together, even then better yet have these holds. But even then during playoffs more so, you got to be looking at not only Instinct, who we've already highlighted, not even then better yet JP, who's kind of had those great first kills and not those first deaths. That's the biggest ratio I was looking at earlier. That dude's first kill to death ratio is insane. But regardless, even more so, the one guy that 2 of our production has been making jokes about all season, it being Tillo. This man has gone absolutely ballistic a lot of the times and finding those sprays through smokes, playing those defensive angles, making sure to hold those longer lanes. And so long as he can maybe find those first, those seconds, whatever it may be, a lot of mistakes we've seen the majority of teams make over the course of the season to give St. Clair this pedestal they're on right now. I doubt Maryville's going to really give them that chance, but they got to make sure to kind of swap things up, keep things fresh so he can still be in that same exact position.
Throwing it over to Agents Deck to see officially what agents we're bringing into our first map of Haven. But a thing to talk about would be those spray through smokes and things like that. This kind of feels like a style choice that JP has kind of brought into the St. Clair scheme from their prior school, and even a second player from that team as well, Dallas. So we've seen that plenty of times, and we saw it come out here for St. Clair about in week 3 to week 4, and it started to sit in them very well. That's first blood heavy, right? Spraying through smokes, reading into play, getting information, using every last round and every last bit of their back pocket, and burning out everything you possibly can in terms of utility as well. So their strengths really come off of First Bloods, and that was what Maryville even mentioned. Clark mentioned in that interview is kind of their biggest weakness is First Bloods, and if they're going to lose someone, make sure it's tradable. It's really hard to trade a spray through a smoke that gets a player, luckily, well, not so luckily if you have the skill to do so here for St. Clair, which most definitely is the case. So this feels like a hard style choice between the two, but Maryville make up for that and have made up for that prior in their series against each other with just more systemic gunplay and kind of outweighting a lot of these smokes and not playing the same style like a lot of teams do. It's very hard to predict what Maryville will bring to the table. That it is not a double duelist selection to come out from either of these two squads. The Viper, KJ, Jet, Omen, and Sova is in play, but the only difference you really see here is that Jazzykins will opt away from the Viper choice that was there for Rins on the opposing side for Maryville and instead say, we want this breach, it works well for us on Lotus. I know this agent is super powerful in nearly any map, and I know I can use this well for this map as well.
Yeah, Jazzykins has kind of been on that perma breach kind of situation here, and I mean it works out well for him. I mean, rightfully so. We've seen the results, we've seen it inside Game Change, we've seen it here, and I mean rightfully so. If St. Clair want to have that kind of player that can utilize any single wall in the game to be a scary way to engage on for a retake, or better yet for even getting onto that side initially, Jazzykins is your gal. But as things go even more, so we got to look at the rest of the squad. We have been hyping up these Vipers all darn season. The crazy thing to me is that St. Clair isn't bringing one of those into this matchup, which is a little bit scary for my own sake and seeing the kind of KD ratios of these players and these agents and what they can accomplish. But as things go for round number 1, not really going to have all the influence in the world because this Viper, the snake bites aren't really going to be coming in play too much because the utility isn't going to be fully there. But already kicking things off, finding a bit of an inching way towards that A side, looking to creep up, looking to maybe see what First Blood gets itself up, because we've heard Inch say it himself. Coming from the mouth of the monster, the man wants to make sure that these aren't going to be given up, and even if they are, that they are very, very swiftly exchanged.
A lot of these early brawls on Haven tend to just kind of devolve into a middle courtyard push and try to go for a 5-on-5 or however many numbers that Maryville would send at the problem defensively. But you can see St. Clair playing a very smart game overall in terms of gauging the distance, trying to find where they can fight for something, the macro economy of Volt Orbs, everything here and there. And eventually they'll have to unfurl upon a site, and it will be towards C where Giza on Plat eviscerates Taiga's HP pool with a single round. Till is at least able to get that back from quite the distance thanks to the play down through C-Long and a little bit of over peek your way. And we'll get some intel, but it's more so Rins are looking at on sights as the rest of the team extends into the objective through C defensive side and makes sure that Maryville will come away with that round win. And it's kind of the big difference we're seeing of Rins versus Screwface, knowing that Rins was that go-to duelist choice, and now Screwface sets into that system, and you put Rins back over to this kind of pseudo-sentinel controller role, and it's obviously working out, knowing Rins can get kills and knowing Screwface most definitely can as well.
Yeah, I mean, Screwface, as I said, being that kind of, secondary for Rins, because we looked at this guy, he does like to play those duelists, but I mean, they are the two players who kind of trade in and out, and they understand how to give each other those frags when necessary. But even then still, Giza with a beautiful opener there. I mean, I didn't even think Tiger was going to find that exchange